Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Thank you for being here at such an auspicious time in CBST's history, at CBST's present, and for CBST's future. And thank you for being here at such a significant time in my relationship with CBST. The first time I visited the shul was during the summer between high school and college. Over 30 years, I've been inspired by this community's commitment to open-doored spirituality, to learning, and growing in our commitment to leave the world a better place than we found it. As a human being, as a Jew in the pews, and as a rabbinical student and then rabbi, I have learned from and leaned on Rabbi Kleinbaum's thoughtful wisdom and leadership. Whether from the Bima at Bethune Street or the Javits Center when I was still a teenager, whether in my rabbinical school classroom almost a decade later, or when Rabbi Kleinbaum has taught 100 rabbis about ways to think about leadership at a time of great turmoil in America, or on the one-on-one Zoom meeting we had earlier this week. I have never left, can't think of one time I've left an interaction with Rabbi Kleinbaum not feeling inspired and lifted up. What you have all built together is extraordinary. So when I say that I am especially honored to be asked to succeed this rabbi who has meant so much to you and has meant so much to me, I mean that I take seriously the responsibility to embrace all that has already been built and all that, Mirza Hashem, we will all build together. This week's Torah portion, Shemini, sets us at the consecration moment of the Mishkan, the portable tabernacle, portable shrine in the desert, while the Parashat eventually sets some of the framework for what is and is not kosher food, little stuff, relatively, because it opens with a devastating, devastating incident. After an intense week of preparation and unique ritual, Nadav and Avihu, two of Aaron the high priest's 4 sons, are struck dead on the spot after offering something called strange fire. And we Jews, for the past few thousand years, have been trying to figure out what happened. Now that, as we say, could have been dayenu for something with which we need to grapple in the Parashat, but there's more. As Dr. Ellen Frankel imagines in 5 books of Miriam, our daughters ask why Moses offered insensitive words of consolation to his brother Aaron, who just lost 2 of his sons. That's what the Eternal One meant when they said, "Through those near to me, I show myself holy and assert my authority before all people." And after those words, Aaron remains silent. In her essay about Parashat Shemini in Torah Queries, Dr. Tamar Kamienkowski, one of my Bible teachers, points out some of the homosocial, maybe homoerotic dynamics, undertones of all the priests preparing for this moment, maybe feeling a relationship with a male-ish God at that time. And she ends with a vision that I think is so beautiful. Tamar asks us to imagine passion as a means of strengthening, not rupturing community. Imagine passion as a means of strengthening, not rupturing community. At times of transition, it is natural to feel senses of loss, sometimes even to feel like we are mourning. We remember good old days, contemplate how we ourselves have changed, how our community has changed, how the world has changed. And it is natural at these times to look toward the future with some amount of anxiety. What am I? Who am I? What will be? I believe that one of CBST's defining strengths from the beginning has been noticing people. Stories of the founders not only talk about a group of mostly cisgender gay men making each other feel seen in the totality of their experience, but also noticing who was not yet in the room. Advertising in those early days indicated that this community wanted not to just be a community that was for men. And I wonder, when this community was so intentional about that in the 70s, what seeds were planted for the 80s? What seeds were planted at a time when there weren't really hopeful treatments for HIV/AIDS? What seeds were planted so that myriads of lesbians stood up and took care of their gay male friends who were dying? Maybe thriving as a community during the 80s, even walking in that valley of the shadow of death, positioned CBST closer to our own days to be able to pivot to something online with aplomb during COVID-19, something that's stuck with the community and brought people in. Hi, everyone out there. I hope we connect more on Zoom later. The effects of this have spilled into a congregation that gathers not only here, of course, but around the city and even from around the world. All of us, together with the spirits of our ancestors, those we knew personally and those we did not, those to whom we trace the trees of our families of origin, and those to whom we have been bonded across generations through hearing inspiring stories about them, those who lived to a ripe old age and those who died way too young. All of us are gathered tonight to begin this day of rest under the wings of Shekhinah, God's presence. We know this people, and we continue to know this people who are here for the first time tonight. Who's here for the first time tonight? Really? Yes, okay. Me too. It was my first time in the building earlier. Okay. People who are here for the first time tonight, people who have been here since the very beginning, and those in between. We know this people, and we learn. I'm not going to teach this week's Parashat line by line, though that might be fun. But being a community that cares about learning starts with the kind of personal growth that happens when we learn how to listen to each other's needs, and continues when we are inspired by big ideas that have spanned time and space. We come back to the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, week after week, year after year, because it is the record of our ancestors' earliest search for meaning. But we also do this learning together to recognize that Torah, capital T, capital Tav, I don't know, something, is all of us. It's the sum of our books, the sum of our knowledge, our debates, our concerns, our stories, our hopes, and our dreams. Torah is so big. I'm a cisgender white guy who is happy to use gender-neutral pronouns because I envision a world in which gender is not imposed on people as a primary identifier, yet people can self-define their gender as they wish, if they wish. Also, and maybe repetitively a little bit, I'm a gay dude whose queer and Jewish identities have been important cornerstones of who I am. Not only of who I am, but also of how I envision a world in which people who have been historically marginalized can have their voices centered. And I have so much to learn. So I want to make sure we can continue to be a community in which learning includes best practices for awareness of the privileges that we carry around with us, whether we like it or not. And I want us to strengthen our culture in which we call each other out when, even with the best intentions, we behave in a way that enforces rather than dismantles sexism, racism, ableism, anti-Arab racism, specifically transphobia, homophobia, anti-Semitism. So please call me out when I fall short. And let's all be a community and strengthen this part of our community that can call each other into all of the values of really noticing people and being open to the kind of learning that makes tomorrow better than today. Let's go back to the Torah portion. Moses says, that's what the Eternal One meant when they said, through those near to me, I show myself holy and assert my authority before all the people. And Aaron was silent. In 1991, one of the ways I learned to identify members of the queer community was observing people's black stickers with pink triangles and white words that read, "Silence equals death." I learned more about the Silence Equals Death project and the association with ACT UP, the AIDS Coalition to Unleash Power. By the time I was a year and a half into college, my friend Avi, now a modern Orthodox rabbi and still a friend, he and I talked about the power of this slogan, silence equals death, sometimes paired with knowledge equals power or action equals life. Avi pointed out to me that the Psalms of the Hallel prayers undergirded this idea as well. Lo hametim yahallelujah velo kol yardei duma. The dead will not praise God, nor those who have fallen into silence. The dead will not praise God, nor those who have fallen into silence. Okay, of course, we're Jewish, so there must be other opinions too. And sure enough, the Psalms also talk about, for you, God, silence is praise. But stereotypically, let's face it, Jews, silence is not really one of the big associations with our community. And there may be a time for silence, but CBST, since its inception to now, has made it clearer and clearer and clearer that the divine is found in claiming your space. The divine is found in authenticity, in realness, not silent in our joy, not silent in our spirituality, not silent in our pride, joyful, spiritual, proud. We notice each other. We learn. We are not silent. Imagine passion as a means of strengthening, not rupturing community. Yet Aaron was silent. Spiritual, yes. He was the first high priest. We could only imagine. Joyful? I don't think so. Not this week. Proud? It's hard to say. We are living in a world and at a time when we are feeling ruptures that seem to go way beyond the tearing apart in this week's Torah story of Nadav and Avihu, Moshe and Aharon. This Sunday, we will mark 6 secular months since the horrors of October 7th and the ongoing horrors that have followed. The grave captivities, the sexual abuse, the displacements, and the slaughter of human beings on a massive scale that must end. We are officially in an election cycle that, regardless of its outcomes, still uplifts questions about how and whether America will value liberty and equality and think so carefully about the balance between them. We are in a season that could very well shape the long-term future of our country and of the planet. Let there be love. We are CBST. We are uniquely poised for this moment because we know how to make people feel visible. We know how to keep learning. And we know that silence is rarely the answer. Now, I'm a person that sometimes has anxiety. Anyone else? Something that is interesting that I learned from Rabbi Marcy Zimmerman is that there are two very common words in Hebrew. I hadn't thought about these alongside each other, even though I was aware of each word, that describe fear. There's the word pachad. We kind of hear that in kol ha'olam kulo, lo lefached. You can hear pachad in there, klal, not to fear at all. And there's the word yirah. What was that? Oh, ema. Okay, thank you. Okay, so great. We're gonna add some more. But tonight we're gonna start with two. But I bet you there are even. I bet you there are even more than three if we keep going. Is this one of those things about Inuit words for snow or something? And then the Jews have so many words for. We also have lots of words for learning, you know. So. But look, pachad is the word, I think, that is used to describe like absolute fear. Like the Haman is coming to destroy the Jews in the 127 provinces of Achashverosh kind of fear. It's the word that sometimes gets associated with the Purim story in that way. But yirah is about something, I think, bigger, right? It's the word that translates so beautifully to the word awe in English. The word awe that can lead to awful and awesome, and somehow they're all packaged up nicely together. And this thing happens both in English and in Hebrew, where we can say, I had an awful day, or I had an awfully good day. And this happens in Hebrew as well, right? Like norah can be used as that intensifier in the positive. I have sometimes felt a certain amount of pachad during transitions. And something that I've learned by studying Musar, by reflecting on our character traits that help keep us in balance, is to think about yirah instead of pachad. When you have this sort of feeling of anxiety, is there a way, instead of kind of running from it in fear, to actually embrace it as an opportunity? To focus not on the fear, but on the awe, awfulness, awesomeness. It's all bound up together. Maybe sometimes it feels lousy, but it can be awesome, awesome, awesome. A time to increase our awareness, a time to tune into something bigger than ourselves. And I think times of transition can really give us an opportunity for this too. Maybe this is part of the lesson of Moshe and Aharon's interaction in this week's Parashat. Maybe there's some yirah there that's happening that, were we to be able to be a fly on the wall in that story, we might have understood in a different way. And sometimes I think we see that in the way the text is interpreted. My wish, not only at Parashat Shemini, not only when we are in this season of CBST's transition, is that we really keep our eyes, keep our hearts on the yirah. Even when we feel this thing that we think might be pachad, we let that fear connect to our sense of awe, connect to possibility, connect to hopefulness, connect to something much bigger than ourselves. Rabbi Werber said earlier that Shabbat is me'ein olam haba, a taste of the world to come. And my hope is that this Shabbat, that we open ourselves to all the awe that there can possibly be in just a taste of the world to come. Because when we and the entire Jewish people and the entire queer community and everyone on earth can open ourselves a little more to that sense of wonder and awesomeness, really anything is possible. May it be a day, a week, a season, a world filled with yirah. Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.